Greetings. My name is Ryan and welcome to Propared. So in this video, what I'd like to do is show you around the program a little bit and talk about a couple of the concepts behind our platform. Now, this won't be a complete soup to nuts demo. We won't look at every nook and cranny, but hopefully it'll give you a taste of what this thing is all about. And yeah, give you an opportunity to visualize what this might be like in your organization. So before we start, a couple of quick things. Why we created this and the goals behind the program. It really falls into kind of two major pillars for us that we use for all of our decision-making process when we're thinking about the software. Number one is we want to centralize all of our information. This has been a big challenge for me in my years in the industry, just looking at any one schedule or calendar and not being totally confident that I've got all the information. So provide this very event-specific database, if you will, for collecting all of this information across multiple departments, multiple users, multiple shows, get all of that in one place and allow you some tools to get it better organized. And then secondly is, kind of this very real idea in our industry, which is that we are always working with people outside our organization. It's just impossible to do a show with only full-time people in your company. And that was a big realization for us. And it made us realize that we needed to fold in a more efficient communication process into the Propared system. Because otherwise, you might have the best internal platform in the world, but then you're just right back to square one as soon as you need to get that information out into the hands of other people. We're right back to exporting to PDFs, attaching to emails, sending them out, and then having to do it all over again 10 minutes later when something changes. So with those two things kind of in our minds now, let's take a peek at the program together, shall we? So this is your home screen. Now, the world of theater and events is very, very project-based, i.e. each show that we do can kind of be sectioned off in our workflow into its own little object here. And so that's where we're going to start our tour. This is the project screen. This is where you're going to set up your season, your upcoming shows, whatever events that you guys have in the pipeline. That's where these are going to be created. And you're basically just defining the buckets into which everything goes. All right. So let's look at one of those buckets now. So let's look at the rose tattoo here. So I'm going to click on the rose tattoo, and that's going to take us into probably the most important screen of the program when it comes to centralizing information. And we call that the timeline. So each show here is going to have its master timeline. And the idea here is that this is the collection point for every single piece of schedule and logistics information related to that show. So what are we talking about? We're talking about literally everything from due dates, deadlines, pre-production, room reservations, deliveries, pickups, arrivals, departures, crew calls, performances, rehearsals, costume fittings. Doesn't matter. If it's related to the show, it goes into this list. And you can see as I scroll down here, just a huge variety of level of detail, the types of things that you can store, the flexibility that you have to either enter a, very, very high level placeholder, all the way down to, hour by hour, minute by minute production schedule information. And that's really important for us because, again, time is such a critical resource for us. And, this idea that a checklist of some sort is good enough for us just doesn't really cut it. And I think that's why, again, another reason that we went about creating this system is that most other, kind of traditional project management systems out there just don't put as much emphasis on time as we need in our industry. And speaking of details, if we scroll across here, you can see a whole variety of additional types of details that you can plug into your tasks. So starting with people, you can tag people to any task in the timeline, whether that's a person involved in a specific deadline or a group of people called to a production meeting or a rehearsal. Secondly here is you can assign a location to every single task in your timeline. And this is really key for us here because, again, a single show or event doesn't just happen in one space. It happens in meeting rooms and scene shops and sometimes multiple theaters and things like that. And so you need that level of detail. And later on, I'll show you that's also going to help us create those venue-specific schedules that are so important to us as well. And then over here on the right, you can see custom department and category tags that can be assigned to every single task as well. And again, looking over here, this is important too, because this timeline is going to be a very, very comprehensive list of all kinds of things here. And you want the ability to be able to break this timeline down into different components. So for example, again, we've got the whole timeline for the rose tattoo, and it contains literally everything. But maybe today, I only want to look at things related to load-in. So what I can actually do is filter my timeline by any of these details that I've been plugging into the system: departments, categories, people, locations. So for this one, I'll just click on category, click on load in, run my filter, and you can probably guess what's going on behind the scenes here. We are now looking at a smaller subset of our timeline, which is only the things tagged with that category of load in. I can also use these tools to look out across my whole company. So I've got a little button here that says show all projects. And when I click on that, it's actually going to overlay the timelines for all of my active projects here in the system. And so then when I filter, now I'm looking at maybe everything happening in the rehearsal space, or something like that. So you can really kind of get a better sense of what's going on across everything. Now, the idea behind the timeline is this is the place to collect and organize all the information. All right, this isn't the communication area. This is not a place where you're going to send out schedules. In a way, we've kind of pulled apart the management process a little bit to give you more specific tools for the different types of things you need to do every step of the way. So on the topic of communication, what I'm going to do here is take us over into this screen that we call the filter screen. Now, this is where you are going to set up all of your schedules and calendars that you're going to be using to either look at internally to see kind of what's going on across the breadth of your organization, as well as the calendars and schedules that you're going to be sending out to people outside your company. So what I'd like to do here is start simple and kind of work our way up to some of the more complicated things that you can do when we're talking about scheduling. So let's start actually with that load-in information that we were looking at back in the timeline. So let's say that I've now gotten to the point where I'm feeling pretty confident about the load-in schedule and I'm ready to send it out to people. The cool part about this is that 99% of your work is already done by just collecting the information and organizing it. So now all you have to do is define the filter settings that are going to comprise this particular schedule. And so to do that, all we do here is open up a new filter and go to our filter settings. We'll select our project, the rose tattoo, but then we don't want the entirety of that rose tattoo timeline, right? We only want the things that are tagged with that load-in category. So all we have to do is just pop in that load-in. So now that tells Propared that for this schedule, only include things that have been tagged with the load-in category. So once you save it, Propared does all the rest of the work for you. So it comes in here and it saves a link. It's a shareable link for that schedule. And you can send it out to anybody that you want to. You click on that link and it pops open a separate web tab here in my browser. And that looks something like this. So again, it's just the same information that you were plugging into your timeline, just reformatted and presented in a very easy to read way that requires no logins, no passwords. You can give this to whoever you want, and as long as they have the link, they can view the information. You can bookmark it to your web browser. You can look at it on your phone. It stacks up really nicely in formats for mobile devices. And here's the coolest part about this, is that every time you refresh this schedule, it pings your timeline and it pulls the most up-to-date information. So there's no more versioning. It's just the information. Cool. So let's look at a couple of additional features here within the filters. Secondly here, in addition to this web link that you can send out, there's also a calendar subscription link. And that actually appears here. It also appears down at the bottom of this schedule. And this allows anyone receiving the schedule to subscribe to it in their own personal calendar programs. Google, Outlook, Apple Calendar, doesn't matter. And that stays up to date as well. So then thirdly, you can also email out any one of these schedules that you want to. And this lets us do some pretty cool things. So in the email, we include both of those links that I just mentioned, along with the entirety of the schedule embedded right into the body of the email. And that lets us start doing things like auto-highlighting changes between the last time you sent it and this time. So this is a great tool for notifications and things like that when you add that new show or tomorrow's load-in gets changed and you need to make sure everybody sees it right there in their inbox. Very, very easy to do. Finally, on the topic of more complicated schedules, we also have, in addition to this kind of production schedule list layout, we also have a calendar layout. And this is really, really great for, again, schedules that span more days, as well as when we start looking at season calendars and things like that. But again, let's start simple. Let's say we're going to do a cast schedule, or a rehearsal schedule. So again, come back to my filter settings. This time I've plugged in a couple of different categories because I want all rehearsals and all performances to show up on this calendar. And then we select our calendar layout, and that looks something like this. So here's a weekly performance schedule. Really, really simple, straightforward. If I click on any one of these, I see all the details. Just a very, very easy to read calendar layout that's visible, again, on a web browser, on a mobile device. All of those things are capable here. Now, this is a calendar, and I can show you actually here a larger version of it because I've got some date range options here as well. So let me save that. The other nice thing about this is that the link never changes. So when I save this and I come back, all I have to do is refresh with my changes and they are automatically updated. So you don't have to send out new links or anything like that. Just make your changes and everybody gets them. Now, this is fairly easy to create in a Google Calendar, or an Outlook calendar. But here's where things kind of go off the rails in the Google world and where we felt like we needed to design our own calendar program. And that comes into play when we start talking about, needing to see everything that's going on kind of across the company, when we start talking about multiple shows, multiple departments, or multiple venues. So here I've created a company calendar. All right, and what I've done is I've tagged things in my timeline with this, actually a category that I've creatively named company calendar, that I want to show everybody in the company kind of just the high level snapshot of what's going on across the organization so we can all kind of stay on the same page that way. So what I've done again is I've dropped in this category and then I've selected my calendar layout. And you notice back up here, I've selected not one show this time, but all projects. And that tells Propared that for this calendar, give me literally everything across the whole company that's been tagged with that company calendar category. And so when I click on that one, I am going to see something fancy that looks like this. So here we are. You can see that what Propared has done is it's taken all of the shows that it's found, auto color coded them, given them a little abbreviation, and then laid it out across your entire organization. So now we start to see things that in the world of personal calendar programs would have required half a dozen different calendars. And now here we are, we're able to kind of collect all of this information together and present it in a single place. Now, this is all well and good up to a certain point, but again, if you reach a certain level of complexity, even this becomes confusing because here I've got 2 different rehearsals plus a tech day, and I'm not sure where these are happening, what's going on. I need an even more detailed look at this information. And that's what sort of inspired us to create an additional layer of organization. So what you can now do is you can take your calendar and you can group it by project or by location. And the location one is actually my favorite, because what this is going to do is it's going to take each day and subdivide it by the different locations that it finds within that particular day. So now you look here, we can see our tech day is happening on the main stage. The cost of living is in, rehearsal is in room 280, and then rehearsal room 2 has romance novels for dummies. So this becomes an amazing tool, because now I've got, like, on a weekly basis, just a rundown of everything that's happening across my company and where each thing is taking place. Again, all with an additional 2 button clicks after you've put all the information in the program. So you can see here sort of the flexibility that this provides you, because again, these filter settings can include information from locations, people, departments, categories. So I could build individual venue schedules. I could build itineraries for specific people. I could break my world down by department. I could have a whole series of bookmarks on my web browser. So at any moment, I could pull up any one of these calendars. Again, even though I'm a manager in the program, I wouldn't even have to log into Propared to see that calendar pop up. And again, this comes back to the idea of all of these people that don't need login access. They don't need all the fancy tools. They just need to see what's going on across the organization. Cool, so that's about it for right now. Again, we can go into a lot more detail later on. There's a whole contact management system here where you can build show teams. There's paperwork, there's contact lists, there's rehearsal reports. But again, that's probably served a little bit better for a one-on-one demo. So yeah, at the end of this video, there's gonna be a link if you wanna schedule some time to chat further. I hope you've enjoyed things. Take care and have a great rest of the day.